My wife laughed when she erased me in front of her friends. Not argued with me. Not insulted me. Erased me. And the worst part? She didn't even realize she'd done it. But 10 minutes later, no one at that table was laughing anymore. Before we go any further, if you've ever felt invisible in your own marriage, if you've ever been underestimated by the person who was supposed to know you best, hit like, subscribe, and stay with this story. Because what happens next isn't about revenge. It's about power, silence, and the moment respect finally walks back into the room. The moment my wife laughed, I realized I had already disappeared. Not slowly, not politely, not over time. I mean deleted. Right there at the table, between the breadbasket and the second bottle of red. And here's the thing people don't talk about enough. Erasure doesn't feel like an explosion. It feels like quiet. Like the sound cuts out, but the movie keeps playing. The dinner wasn't supposed to matter. That's what made it dangerous. No birthdays. No celebrations. No speeches or toasts. Just 6 adults crowded around a small oak table in a restaurant that marketed itself as intimate. Low ceilings. Soft yellow light. Candles that flickered just enough to make every smile look warmer than it really was. The kind of place where conversations lean inward. Where secrets don't announce themselves, they slip. Karen called it a casual night with friends. Her friends. People she'd known long before me. People who shared memories I'd never be part of. Inside jokes I didn't understand. A shorthand language of shared history. There was Mike. Loud. Confident. The kind of man who laughed before the punchline because he liked the sound of his own approval. Laura. Perfect posture. Perfect timing. Eyes that constantly scanned the room like she was taking inventory. Jason. Finance guy. You could tell without him ever saying it. He spoke in numbers, certainty, and subtle superiority. And Nicole. Quiet. Observant. The kind of person who remembers everything and speaks only when it matters. And then there was me. The extra chair. Karen was glowing. 2 glasses of wine in, not drunk, not sloppy, just enough to soften her edges and sharpen her tongue. She leaned back in her chair, laughing freely, touching Mike's arm when he spoke, correcting Jason mid-sentence when he exaggerated. She did it effortlessly. I watched her the way you watch a familiar movie with the sound off. You know every beat. You know what's coming. You just don't know when it's going to hurt. The conversation drifted exactly where it always did. Real estate markets. College tuitions. Whose kid was already interning somewhere impressive. Who had upgraded. Who had sold. Who had timed the market just right. Success passed around the table like a shared language. I didn't interrupt. I never did. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I'd learned something important over the years. If people don't want to hear you, silence isn't humility. It's efficiency. Then Mike turned to me. Not aggressively. That almost made it worse. He smiled, tilted his head slightly, and asked in that friendly, empty tone people use when they've already decided your answer won't matter. So, what do you do again? I opened my mouth. I actually did. I had a response ready. Nothing flashy. Nothing defensive. Just honest. But Karen didn't even let the silence stretch. Oh, she said, waving her hand lightly, like brushing away a crumb. He's still figuring himself out. She laughed. Not cruelly. Casually. Like it was a harmless truth everyone already knew. Mike chuckled. Jason smiled politely. Laura raised her eyebrows, just a fraction, like she'd been given confirmation of something she already suspected. Nicole looked down at her wine. I closed my mouth. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break that I told myself it wasn't worth correcting. That this wasn't the place. That dignity sometimes meant restraint. But the truth was simpler. I didn't want to explain myself to people who weren't listening. Karen leaned closer to the table, warmth buzzing through her voice. I mean, we all take different paths, right? She added. More laughter. Softer this time. Safer. The waiter came by to refill glasses. I declined. My hands were steady, but something inside me had gone quiet, like a room after the lights are shut off. The conversation moved on without me. It always did. The message didn't say she was leaving. It said she'd already upgraded. That's what hit me first. Not the betrayal, not the shock, but the confidence in those words, like I was an outdated phone she'd finally replaced. It came at 2:47 on a Thursday afternoon while I was sitting at my desk, buried in quarterly numbers, half listening to a muted news channel. My phone buzzed once. I expected something harmless. Maybe a reminder about dinner. Maybe a question about groceries. Instead, The screen lit up with a sentence that felt rehearsed. I'm leaving you for someone who actually loves me. No build-up, no explanation, just a verdict that if this story already has you leaning in, do me a favor real quick. Hit subscribe, tap the like button, and leave a comment. Not because the algorithm wants it, but because stories like this only matter if they're heard. Now, let me tell you what happened next. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Not 10 seconds, longer. Long enough for the office around me to fade into background noise. What surprised me wasn't the message itself. It was how theatrical it sounded, like a line lifted from a bad TV drama. After 12 years of marriage, this was the grand finale. A text message delivered between calendar alerts. She added another line before I could respond. Don't try to stop me. That's when I smiled. Her name is Laura. Or at least that's what I'll call her here. My name is Michael. We met in our 30s. Built a life that looked solid from the outside. House routines, holidays with her family, predictable comfort. I was the reliable one. The man who remembered birthdays, fixed things before they broke, apologized even when I didn't need to. Laura used to say she loved that about me. Turns out she loved it the way people love safety rails. Right up until they decide they want excitement instead that I didn't call her. I didn't rush home. I didn't ask who he was. I typed back 2 words. Safe travels. Then I locked my phone and went back to